Hi everyone, in this tutorial I want to show you just a quick overview of how I teach 360-degree video in my class. I know everyone couldn't make it physically to Texas State this year, which is quite sad, and you weren't able to take your own footage, but what I do have for us is some footage that my students have taken, and I'd like for you to go ahead and download that. And if you go to our PH Digital option 2 here, where it says download video files here, you're going to see a link to a Google Drive that has multiple scenes that students have taken. Faith and Lily, I did get their permission for us to use it in these exercise files, and you can use their actual footage that they took. Now, they used a Samsung Gear 360, and then they converted it and stitched it. And so these are 5 different scenes that they have. Once you download the files, you will see that they are fully stitched, and they are equirectangular. What that means is a 2-to-1 ratio. It's twice as wide as it is tall. And you can see that they had some people kind of passing through, and they were doing a little bit of a tour of campus. And so there are multiple scenes that you might choose. And so you can go ahead and download those before we get started. Here I have Premiere Pro. You can really only use Premiere or Final Cut Pro to edit VR video. You can't use iMovie. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new project, and I'm going to call it VR Video Sample, and go ahead and press OK. All the default settings are just fine. And it's going to open up a brand new interface of Premiere Pro. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import that media, the media that I had downloaded. So I'm just going to double click here and go to my downloads, and I'm going to access this video that I had downloaded. Go ahead and press import, and it's going to import my file. They're about, as you can see, 300 to 400 to even upwards of almost 500 megabytes. So it might take a little bit. Once you have it here in your bin, there's one special thing that you're going to need to do to the footage in order to edit it in VR. And what I have to do is right-click on the footage and scroll up to where it says Modify, and then I have to click Interpret Footage. So we have to tell Premiere how to interpret this footage. Now, all the frame rates are all fine, and all this is fine, but down here at the bottom where it says VR Properties, we have to click Conform To, and then I have to choose equirectangular so that it knows that this is a 2-to-1 ratio, that it will be used for VR video. And that's all you have to do for that, okay? And just go ahead and press OK. Now I can take this footage and literally just drag it right into my timeline, into my sequence. And if you've used Premiere Pro before, hopefully you have, and you're somewhat familiar with the interface here, but it's given me a video track, audio track, and really we're just editing this exactly like we would any other footage. Now, you'll notice that it's a little bit jumpy, and so you might have to, because it's a little bit heavier of footage, go up to sequence at the top and do a render into out. I often have my students doing that pretty constantly throughout us working in the labs, because this yellow line here means that it hasn't been rendered, and it can be a little bit tricky and bulky. There are also instructions on the PH Digital resources that show you how to create proxies. And so if that is something that makes our lives so much easier when you're working with VR video, is actually using proxies within Premiere, using the media encoder that will make this process a lot faster. Okay, once it's done, you can see that it is a green line, and that is good. We can kind of scrub through this. Now you'll notice it's showing it as an equirectangular. If I wanted to preview this to see what it would look like in 360, there's a special button here that Premiere provides here. If I press the button editor, I can search for it here. It's a toggle VR video display. And this allows me to see this in VR. So I can take that button and drag it into my toolbar, and you can see that it will appear here as one of my tools. I'm gonna go ahead and press OK so that I can leave that in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and press toggle. And now it's got this little window that I can actually kind of preview my 360 video before I actually render it and publish it. And so that's a great feature. Now, this is a preview window, and so this only lets me kind of watch it, but it's not really what the user will see because they're going to be looking all around, right? There's no telling exactly where they're going to be looking at any given time. But it is important for us to make note of the zero, kind of zero this out. This is the starting point for where the user will be looking. And that's not necessarily the best place to be looking when you start. There's nothing really here but a wall. Now I could toggle this around and look that way, but naturally this is where the user will start. And so there are a few video effects that Premiere also provides to change things like this so it can be a better immersive experience. If you go up here into video effects and then go down to distort, there is an offset feature. I'm going to go ahead and take that offset and drag it on my clip. Now I can take the offset control here and I can shift my center and I'm going to move it horizontally back to where my subject is. So if this is where I want them to start with the VR view, I can take that offset feature and now when the user, you can see these are zeroed out. This is just the preview window, like I said. And now when the user puts on the headset, their starting point will be Lily and Faith, and it won't be down the hallway. There's actually an immersive video folder here within Premiere that you could add to any one of these clips as well. Now, one thing that I do use from time to time is a rotate sphere or a plane to sphere. Sometimes you want to add a 2D object into a 3D space. And if I wanted to add like a picture and maybe put a picture on the wall here and maybe do something with that, there are some features that you could add to those that will allow you to move it along the X, Y, and Z axes as well. So I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but I just want you to be aware of a whole folder for immersive video here within Premiere. Now, once I'm done here, as I edit, like I said, you edit this really just like you would any video that you have within Premiere. I'm going to take the toggle VR display off. I like to edit normally with the equirectangular view, and then I like to test it in the VR toggle. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go into Premiere, use my slice tool to kind of cut it right here where they're going to start talking, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this part, drag it, and just get the short scene. I normally teach students to do the shorter the clips are best. Because people don't like to sit in sweaty headsets for too long. And so I like to have them have kind of shorter scenes, and hopefully you're getting kind of used to that within your video storytelling as well. I'm going to go ahead and render into out here so it can preview it. Okay, now that it's done, you can see that they are going to talk to their audience. A few things that I make sure that they know about is that they have to have, some decent hand gestures to make sure the viewer knows where to look. And like I said, kind of keep the scene somewhat short and to the point, and also make sure the tripod is set to about eye level. And this is just going to be one scene. Now you can do as many scenes as you want. I'm just going to do this one for now. As far as transitions go, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it here, just so that this will kind of act as two different scenes. What I tell my students to do for scene transitions is to just do slow dissolves, whether it's a fade to black and then fade back up, or if it's just a very slow dissolve, about 5 seconds. Mainly, we don't like to use cuts for our storytelling, because if you're trying to transport someone from one environment to another, it can be kind of jarring to just suddenly cut to another scene. So I like to use the video transition of dissolve, and the cross dissolve, I like to make it at least 5 seconds. That gives them enough heads up as to how long they're going to be, as to what's happening exactly. You can see in the bottom right that there is a little duration. This is about 5 seconds long. It may seem long at first, but it really is not as long as you might think. So that's another small tip that I'll give. And then as far as titles go, I have my students go to just do a file new legacy title. And this is kind of the old school way of adding a title here within Premiere. I know there are other ways, but I think this to me makes the most sense whenever we're creating titles. So here I have my title window open, and of course it's going to appear kind of wherever my cursor is here in the window. And let me go ahead and create a little box. If I wanted to give them a little, name key for them, I'm going to make this box, I'll actually make it black, and I'll make it somewhat opaque, maybe about 80% opaque, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some text, some type, and go ahead and do that. I'll draw the box out here. Lily and Faith. Okay, make this white and maybe allow it to be a bold instead of, how it is. And I'm going to take this title and drag it down, and there it is. Okay, so with titles, I like to have it kind of the smaller the better to start. The bigger it is, the more distorted it will be in the VR view. The smaller it is, the less you can tell that anything is really happening. Also, the closer to the horizon, the better. As you can see, everything kind of gets distorted as it gets away from the horizon line, and that includes this, this label. So I don't want to cover their faces, so I'm going to do it a little bit lower. But you'll see when I add this, I'm going to go ahead and just X out of this now that I've made my title. And I can take this title and add it to my scene. And you'll notice that it's going to be a little bit warped. And let me go ahead and look in the VR view, and you can see that it's a bit warped, okay? And like I said, you may have to mess with the plane to sphere a little bit. You can see already once I add that plane to sphere to the title, it kind of fixed a lot that was wrong with it. Now I can go back into the scale, make it a little bit larger, okay, and I can move it down a little bit so I can kind of go where I want it to go, horizontally and vertically, and it won't be warped, nearly as warped as it was. Now you can also go into these rotate projection options, and you can kind of move them around the 360 view that way as well. But you will notice that if you try to add like a flat title or anything that's flat into a 360 video, it will get warped the farther away it is from the horizon line. So that's where that VR plane to sphere option really comes in handy. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into my equirectangular view. And when I'm ready to export this, once I've got my titles and I've got my dissolves and things like that, and it's ready to go, I can just go to File, Export, Media. And the one thing that I make sure students look for when they're exporting is when they scroll all the way down here, I let them use maximum render quality, and I make sure that as they scroll here in the video options that this video is VR button is checked. Make sure that it is checked. What that's going to do is it's going to add some metadata to the video so that it can automatically upload to YouTube and Facebook, and it will receive it as a 360 video. If this is not checked, then it will not have that metadata, and it will appear as the equirectangular version, and it will not look correct. So I'm going to go ahead and press export, and it's going to go export our video, and then we can upload to YouTube or Facebook.